What's up, everyone? So I figured on this day off I was gonna go ahead and go check some trail cameras and do some scouting in some areas. So I figured I'd bring you guys along, just kind of show you exactly how I do things, why I'm doing things, where I'm doing things, not exactly where, but I'll give you guys some clues on, you know, how I'm looking for deer. Basically, I love all sorts of hunting, but when it comes to scouting and getting ready, white-tailed deer are definitely my favorite. I mean, I do a lot for elk as well, and it's fun. I'm not saying it's not fun, but I know I can locate those bulls a lot of times when I'm out there hunting and actually going after it. So I don't know, there's just something about finding those big white-tailed bucks in the velvet that get your blood pumping. So I'm just gonna take you along today, and hopefully you learn something. So sadly, I came up here and basically my camera was sitting right here, and no, it didn't get stolen or anything, but I checked it and it didn't look like it was taking any pictures, so kind of sad. I was really looking forward to seeing what was in the spot. The spot is actually the same spot where I killed my buck last year, but quite a ways to the north. It's on the same property, but anyways, I just wanted to talk about this spot real quick. And tip number one, I guess, for the day, I always bring up backup cameras. I always have one, just in case of that, because otherwise I come in here and I have to take it out, and now I don't get to see what's in here for like the next month or 2 weeks before I get in here again. But anyways, I just wanted to talk about this spot. It's not a very big piece of property, and I can guarantee everybody that either walks on this property or walks by it doesn't even think about hunting it. And it has a lot of really good bucks. But the reason why is because it's small, and you know, there's a lot of access to it. It's really easy to get to. So because of that, people don't think about hunting it. They just think, you know, four-wheeler or whatever. And it's super easy to get to. But because of that, it's way overlooked, and these deer don't really get that much pressure in here, which is surprising. Now, last year I found that this wasn't a great spot for late season, at least where I was before. And what I did was I scouted the rest of the property, and actually I'll show you, but I found a lot of rubs on this side of the property. So it might be a little different, but one of the reasons why I picked this on the map, it's because it's got water close by, it has a lot of bedding, a lot of security, and it also has a lot of food. So those are the three main things when I'm trying to kill an early season buck, is basically just get in someplace where they can get all three and they don't have to move very much, especially a mature buck. He's not going to want to move a whole lot when he's in his summer range. So it would definitely be awesome to see if we get some of those bucks making some of these rubs on camera this year too, just to see what they are, because a lot of these bucks aren't going to migrate, but I know some bucks will work themselves in from like the mountains surrounding, because there's quite a few does in this area. So we're going to get this guy hung up and get the heck out of here. Another thing I wanted to touch on is game camera security. So I'm not doing anything like still real special, even though this could easily get stolen here. I mean, someone could find this no problem. But I do use the Python locks, which will wrap around and at least deter. You know, if they really want it, they're gonna get it. That's the way it is, especially on these pieces where it's like this. I mean, not expect, but I wouldn't be surprised if someone found it. So if that's the case, you know, big deal, I lose one. I'm kind of a trail camera junkie. I got almost 40. So it's one of those things that does suck, especially if you're new to hunting or something and you got just a little bit of spare money to get a trail camera and someone steals it, but it happens. So you just want to make sure that it's security. A lot of times just like this, just a little deterrent will make someone look at it and not really try to tamper with it. So I'm at spot number 2, and I'm gonna go ahead and unload the bike. This spot's a little bit more tricky, and this is another thing that I look at. When there is a road that's really, really rough, I know that's usually gonna deter the road hunters. So another spot where I can get in, and I'm not gonna have as many people in here for competition. So, but we're gonna get everything loaded up. Hopefully this camera's working. I'm really hoping that there's some big deer on this camera. I know that there's big deer in the area, but there's so many trails in there. I mean, I put it on the one that was worn out the most, but we'll see what happens. So we're at trail camera number 2, and I'll probably look like hell just because for some reason the GPS in my phone, which I use to mark all these, basically wasn't working and took me into a completely different area. It just shows you don't always rely on your technology. I actually had to go back to the bike, circle around, get to where I thought I was last time, and walk the trail that I found that I thought was so good, and that's why I picked this spot. I just checked a little bit. Seems like there's maybe one decent buck. He might be a little bit of a late bloomer, but we'll see. Man, I hope that SD card to that next spot, or that last spot, at least works. But we're gonna go ahead and put another SD card in this guy and turn it back on and get going. I've literally been walking for like at least 2 hours trying to find this damn thing, but I have lots of other trail cameras in the truck, but I think we're gonna put one more up, and it's a little bit of a drive, which is kind of nice to give me a rest. But yeah, at least we found it. I was like, no way did someone steal that camera in here. It all looks the same. There's no way. You would just have to be so lucky to just stumble upon it. Heck, I was lucky to stumble upon it. But anyways, kind of give you a reason why I picked this area. So the reason is it's hard to get to. Even though it's not super hard to get to, but it's just enough out of the way where I don't think anybody's going to be back here. So the trail's not great, so four-wheelers aren't going to want to come back here, and my bike is great for getting in these areas like this. So I know there's a lot of big deer in here. There's just so much sign to go through. Nice thing about getting lost is every time I marked, or every time I came across a rub, a scrape, anything like that, a bed, especially a bed by itself. I ran into a couple beds that were completely isolated. Now they're probably within 60, 70 yards of me. So that's a buck bed. When you're finding it all by itself, like I go around and I make sure, like I actually will go find a bed and then walk in a circle a couple of times around just to see if I can find any other beds. So most of the time, especially this time of year, you're going to get doe bedding groups, and throughout the rest of the year. So if you see a whole bunch of little beds kind of clustered together, that's a doe bedding group, and those are good to mark too, because if those deer are using that year round, that's going to be a good rut spot, because those bucks will come to find the does. So that's just something that definitely you need to keep an eye on. If you find a big empty bed by itself, definitely a deer bed. Don't be mistaken an elk bed or anything like that. But nice big buck bed. Check if there's hair in it. Hopefully there's hair in it. That means it's being used a lot. And yeah, that's definitely a spot. Just mark everything you find like that, sign, and when you bring it back and look at it, it starts to make a lot of sense when you start putting it together. It's like a puzzle. So I found like 5 or 6 rubs, and I'm like, man, they don't look like it's like a rub line at all. And then I started backing out, and I'm like, it's definitely a rub line. So, and that's just a little bit south of me. So there's another area. This might not be a great summer area. They have everything in here they need. I mean, they have food, water, and lots of cover for bedding, but that doesn't always mean they're going to be in here, at least a big mature one this year. So I'm going to go ahead and get everything ready and go grab the bike and get out of here and go check out at least one more spot. So we are at spot number 3. I'm going to get the bike unloaded and we're going to head in here. So far I really like the way it looks. Sorry about the sun there, but yeah, it looks great. It looks like it's going to be good, but we're gonna try to get a camera up here soon. My phone's about to die, so I'm gonna have to remember really good where I put this thing, because it's kind of like the last spot. It all looks the same. But the main reason why I actually picked this spot is because I try to find areas where there's like a cut or 2 different habitats kind of combined, like, and create an edge, because whitetails love edges, and all your deer guys know, you go to edge of a clear cut, you'll see deer pretty much all the time. But the problem with that is most of the time when you find a clear cut, it's right by a road, because those logging trucks had to get in there. And especially in northern Idaho, I found pretty much everybody has access to that because they're bringing a four-wheeler. So this has got one trail in it, and that's the nice thing that I can see right now. I'm going to use the trail to get in there with the bike a little ways, and then I'm going to break off if I see any tracks or sign and go from there, but we'll see what happens. I'm excited about this spot. I'm scouting it now, but I'm also really looking forward into later season when we get some snow, because I know these bucks that are around in the mountains right here are going to get pushed down into this. But that was what I thought where I found my buck last year and found all those bucks in there. I thought, oh, this would be a great late season spot. It ended up being a good early season spot. So you can do as much online research as you can, but until you put trail cameras out there and actually get to see what's in there, you never know. So we're gonna do that right now. We can get the bike unloaded and let's go see what we can find. Just to give you guys an idea, like that is a family of does. You can see there's one right over there, and there's two up in there, two right there, and there's one right there. So that's a good spot for me to remember. It's actually pretty close to the main trail here. So that's one of those things where it's like, you got to make sure your wind is right, and then you're coming in. And I've seen a couple lone beds back there too. So there's definitely quite a bit of deer, and there's quite a bit of elk in here. This is what it looks like. And it's perfect because it's right on top of that little bit of a knob there. So if you're coming up from this way, they got you. And then the wind's coming from the opposite direction. So if they can't see you, they're smelling you, and then they're gone. So those kinds of things you want to make sure you're not doing like what I'm doing right now, although it doesn't really matter right now, but you don't want to just be fumbling through the woods and looking for stuff. So I finally found a place to put this trail camera. I'm gonna explain kind of the reasons why. And actually, I don't know if you can see that, but let me flip the camera around a little bit. Right, and there's a bed. That's one thing, and that's a buck bed all by itself, and it's right on one of these trails where he's getting up, he's walking down, he's marking every other tree. There's a lot of rubs here. Not finding a ton of scrapes, but a lot of rubs. So he's definitely bedding back there. That's one. Now I just cleaned this tree up, so I always pack my Hooman saw. I mean, otherwise, with all this stuff in here, it's hard to get a perfect tree, a spot where you want your trail camera. But anyways, so I'm gonna basically, right here is where I'm gonna put the trail camera. And the reason why is because there's that trail. I know it's really hard because everything's really overgrown, but there's this trail right here, as you can see. It goes right down in there, and that's where he's marked quite a bit of stuff. And then there's also this trail right here. This one's not as well used. There's also a trail right there, and then these trails connect and they go up into this. Now you're probably looking at that and thinking, it doesn't look like anything special, and you're right. Right now it's really hard to pick out these spots because of the fact that it's so overgrown. I mean, these deer are using it. I mean, I just bumped that buck over there and just right around that area. So I mean, they're in here, but the thing is it's tough this time of year scouting. That's why I was saying definitely like after season, you know, January, February, March, those are great times to go scout. Like I said before, snow on the ground, you can see the tracks, you can see what kind of trails they're using, and there's not as much stuff. All the underbrush is gone, and you can definitely see the trails a lot better. So just kind of heads up on scouting. This is me just finding new spots. I found a lot of these spots during the winter months and I just didn't come out and put the time and effort. So now I'm having to do it now, which is perfectly fine because I love doing it, but it does make it a little bit more complicated. So we're gonna go ahead and get this trail camera set up right there, and then I'll show you on the way out what this buck's doing. So we're pretty much all done. As you can see,
trail camera's all set up, and you hit all these trails coming in here, and basically it's right on the intersection, and that's why I wanted it in that spot. So we're gonna go ahead and turn it on. Let's see here, and it should be perfect. All right, we're gonna go ahead, close her up here. Should be good there. All right, so I'm going to show you guys exactly what this buck's doing, and I kind of want to explain what I said before, just before I signed off and started putting the trail camera on. That is a bed behind there. Don't get that wrong. That is a bed, but it's an old bed, just so you know. I went through there and I checked, and I couldn't find any hair, so it's an older bed, but it just kind of gives me an idea of what a buck in this area is doing. Now, there's beds all up in here, and it goes up a little bit, and basically this is like right on a little knoll. And the reason why bucks like being up there is because of the thermals, the wind direction, and then depending on where they're facing, they can hear anything coming. So I'm gonna follow this trail out that I came in on, and I'm just gonna show you some of the rubs. So there's one right there. That's a little bit of a hard one to see. It's a little older one. But as you keep coming through here, so here's another one. And that one's obviously very easy to see, and that is a buck rub. And then there's one right over there. And then as you keep coming, there's another one right there, and so we're just going to keep continuing to go on this trail, and this is one of the most well-used trails here as well. So, and there again is another one. So in a matter of what, 20 yards, I've counted about 4 or 5 rubs. I just showed you a couple of them right there. So that is basically why I picked that spot. Now, you're probably thinking, well, why does that matter if there's a rub and you're gonna be hunting in September and like late August? I put trail cameras up where I see sign. I know there's deer in here. I saw a buck, so I know he's in here, and he's probably gonna use that trail as well. They might not care about, you know, heck, they might use one of those rubs to rub their velvet off, but that is primarily from this last year and marking their territory and rutting. So I have to take in consideration all those factors. Yes, that's sign from the rut, but that doesn't mean that there's not going to be a couple nice bucks in here lounging around in the summertime, because there's not a whole lot of elevation change in here. So that usually tells me that either basically there's not going to be a whole lot of bucks coming in this area that are like migrating in. It's not a lot of like surrounding mountains or anything like that. It's fairly flat, so a lot of these bucks are going to be local bucks. And so basically these bucks are living here all of their life, all year round, and not really moving that much. So and we're off into the trail. Whew, man, I've been doing this and been going since about 8 o'clock this morning, and I can guarantee you, even though my phone's dead, it is probably about 2. So I am dead tired. And don't be like me and not bring your water. I'm like dying of thirst. That was really stupid of me. My bike's back there, but there was another rub right across the road here, and I just wanted to kind of show you guys if I can find it again. Probably walking right by it. Oh, here it is. So here's another one where I could have been on this side of the road, but this side of the road is a little bit easier to access. And as you can see, this buck's hitting both sides of the road. You can see that rub right there. And that's a pretty good one. But that is actually almost dead in line with this side and that trail. So this camera is going to be interesting to see, you know, is he hanging out more on this side of the road? Is he hanging out more on that side of the road? That's what trail cameras are great for. Basically being able to see exactly where these animals are coming from. That way I know where to put my tree stand, what wind to hunt. I mean, if he's coming from like off of that and coming down, that's a whole nother game if he's coming up and going up that way. So just some things to think about, but whew, we're out of here. I'm going home, get something to drink. I'm really hoping that that spot number 1 SD card at least got some pictures on it. I don't know, I really hope, but we're gonna see. And if I do get anything good on camera, I'll definitely share with you guys any good interesting pictures. But anyways, I'll meet you back at my place, and we'll talk about a little bit of what I've been doing today and a couple more tips that I didn't get to when I was out here. So we'll be there in a little bit. I'm officially back home, finally got something to drink, and went through some trail camera pictures. I did have one decent buck come through in my second spot earlier this morning, so he's got pretty decent eye guards already. I mean, we're not even in July. I like doing this stuff a little earlier than a lot of other guys do, but that's okay. So it'll be fun to watch him grow. He looks like he's using the spot pretty well, so we'll see what happens there. But just a couple things that I wanted to hit on, and that's one is trail cameras. So I understand not everybody's got a ton of money to put out there and buy trail cameras and use, but they're so helpful. I mean, with mine, you know, I have almost 40. I know that's a little crazy, but with that, I get to cast a really large web, and I get to see exactly what's in these areas that, you know, otherwise I would have no clue. So that's one thing that I always kind of tell people when they can't find game. You know, invest the money, get the trail camera. You know, if that's not something you're interested in, you know, you're just gonna have to put a lot of effort into a lot of e-scouting online, and putting feet on the ground, walking as much as you can and finding that sign and hunting the sign. I like finding the bucks myself. Like I want to find a specific buck that I'd like to hunt and keep hunting, and I understand a lot of guys don't want to put them out on public land because they think they're going to get stolen. There's definitely other ways to do it than a lockbox or a python cable. Like I said before, that's a lot of the time that's enough of a deterrent to make them just go away. But you know, bring some tree stand steps, like screw-in steps, or like a section of ladder piece for a tree stand, like a fixed stand. Bring it in, hang your cameras high, angle them down low. You know, that way people aren't gonna walk through the woods, you know, and look 10 feet up in the air for a camera. So it's just not gonna happen. I've had guys walk right underneath cameras that I've had up and never even seen them. So the last thing I want to talk about is the first spot that we went to. I was able to kill a pretty decent buck there last year, and a lot of guys would be like, well, why aren't you just hunting out of the same tree stand? Well, I take my tree stands down for one thing, and I don't like getting complacent in one spot. Just because that was a good spot this last year doesn't mean it's going to be a good spot this year. I do have a trail camera up in that area, and we'll see what happens. But I saw this so much in southern, it'd be southeastern Washington, where I lived for a long time, and it's mostly private property. And guys would get so complacent, and you know, not everybody's hunting on a 200, 300 acre piece. Sometimes it's even just a 50 acre piece. But sometimes that makes a difference even in something small like that, a small area. You got to move around. You got to find where the deer are moving. You know, you might have gotten lucky one year and killed the biggest buck out of that area, and that was his trail that he used. Not necessarily is another buck going to move into that area and be a nice big mature buck and use that exact same trail. So there again, the trail cameras come into play, but also just don't get complacent. Always try to keep learning. I'm a fairly good hunter. I'm pretty successful. I wouldn't say I'm a amazing hunter or anything like that, but I do a lot of work. I try to get out there and scout as much as possible, but just don't be cut off to learning new stuff. Anytime I meet another hunter that is a successful hunter and he has something to share with me, I'm listening. So just try to keep learning and don't get complacent and sitting in those same tree stands every year. You know, make sure you look around. Private property, public property, doesn't matter. Make sure you're casting your web and getting as much information as possible. And that's going to be it for me today. I hope you guys learned at least something today. Just, you know, one or two things just would be great. But I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to take you along every time that I go out. And like I said, I got a lot more trail cameras to put up. I'll be doing this for elk. I'll put up more cameras later in the season. So I just want you guys to come join me, and hopefully you learn something on the way. And I'll see you on the next video.